July 9th, 10 a.m., District Court, Courtroom Number 3. Court is now in session for the... How do I say that?
Machi Tobaye, Your Honor. The pixie of the arpeggio.
Right, it's trial. Court is in session.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. The prosecution's A-okay, Herr Judge.
Very well, Prosecutor Gavin. My opening statement, yeah? No, actually, there was something else I wanted to ask you about.
Yes?
Say you're going to visit someone in the hospital with an incurable disease. What do you say to them?
Eh?
I mean, you wouldn't say, get well soon, right? You'd only be kicking them when they're down.
What are you talking about?
Actually, I'm going to visit someone who is terminally ill. Right after this trial, the Chief Justice's son.
The Chief Justice?
His son is afflicted with a most terrible disease. He doesn't have long, it seems. So I thought I'd go pay him a visit. I thought saying something moving might be the order of the day.
Why don't grown-ups ever just say what's on their mind instead of pretending?
She's looking at me with something like disgust. Hey, what are you looking at me like that for?
In any case, I'm a bit busy today, so let's wrap this up quickly. Prosecutor Gavin, your opening statement. Briefly.
You're in luck, Herr Judge. I believe you'll be going on your hospital visit sooner than you think. First, to review the victim in this case. Romain Letousse, age 35, the global manager for diva songstress Lamiroir. The cause of death, blood loss due to being shot by a large caliber revolver. This report has all the details.
Court accepts this into evidence. 45 caliber. That's quite large, isn't it? A direct hit from that could knock a man off his feet.
However, the bullet struck him in his shoulder. The damage to the body was slight. Death was not immediate. Sadly, his blood loss was such that he could not be saved.
I suppose the victim's condition could have been much worse considering.
2 shots were fired. 1 shot missed. The other penetrated and passed through the victim's shoulder. Both bullets were found in the wall of the scene. Observe the diagram. This is where the bullets hit.
I see. The court accepts this evidence. If we're talking about a 45 caliber revolver, we must assume that the killer was adept at the weapon's use.
Really?
Yeah, apparently weapons that size have a powerful kickback. If, say, the judge tried to fire one, it'd break every bone in his body.
The defense will take more care in choosing examples.
As I was saying, the victim was shot backstage in a dressing room. This dressing room has only one entrance, this door.
That does seem to be the case, yes.
However, there were witnesses who heard the gunshots.
He's talking about you and Ima, huh?
Yet when the witnesses entered the room, it was empty, save for the victim's body, of course.
But that's impossible.
Exactly. This murder was impossible. For all but one person.
One person?
That is, of course, the defendant, Machi Tobaye.
Only this defendant could have committed the crime? But how?
It's quite simple. The circumstances of the crime scene make it clear.
Very well, I assume you have testimony to back up this claim. Please show the witness to the stand.
Your name and profession, please.
Ima Sky. I'm a detective for the police department. I was on security detail at the concert forum that night.
Ima seems tired somehow.
Security at the concert, you say?
Some security I was couldn't even stop a murder.
Now, don't blame yourself. Things like this happen. I've made even bigger mistakes in my career, you know?
I'm sure that makes her feel much better.
I want to hear about these bigger mistakes.
In any case, because you were on security detail, the crime was quickly discovered, and we were able to identify the killer. You may give the court your testimony if you would. Describe the circumstance of that day, and you'll discover the crime, please.
All right. Witness testimony. Murderous circumstances. The night of the murder, I was on security backstage at Prosecutor Gavin's request. Only people involved with the concert in some way were allowed backstage. At the beginning of the third set, I heard shots. I went into the room filled with blaring rock music and found the body. I examined the scene and determined that only the defendant could have done it.
It was lucky that a detective was the first on the scene.
But that door was the only way out of the room, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Then I don't get it.
How can they say that Machi did it?
Looks like we need a bit more information.
Very well, the defense may begin the cross-examination.
Well, we're going to find out what's going on.
The night of the murder, I was on security backstage at Prosecutor Gavin's request.
The night of the murder was the night of the concert, yes?
That's right.
What was a detective doing on security detail, might I ask? If it was only a concert.
My thoughts exactly. But orders are orders, even when they come from rock gods.
Prosecutor Gavin? Yes, allow me to explain. I smelled something that day, you might say. The stench of conspiracy. That day at the concert.
Conspiracy?
Well, isn't it obvious? My keys, the whole morning, or the whole day was ruined. It's all because someone stole my keys! I couldn't ride my heart to the show, I couldn't open my guitar case.
There he goes again.
Isn't it possible he simply misplaced them?
Misplaced them?
Misplaced items don't just wander into a murder victim's hand on their own.
What's this? Prosecutor Gavin, if your keys were in the victim's hand, that makes you a prime suspect.
Love, slow acting anew, atroquinine is waiting for you.
He's singing something.
Does everything with this guy have to be so over the top? The killing happened in the middle of my concert. I was like a sailor adrift on a sea of sand. Anyway, I didn't want anything else stolen, so I put the detective with the most time on their hands on the task.
I see, I can accept that.
Well, I can't. What do you mean time on their hands?
Please, the testimony.
Only people involved with the concert somewhere were allowed backstage. At the beginning of the third set, I heard shots. I went into the room filled with blaring rock music and found the body.
Rock?
Blaring, yes.
When you say rock, are you referring perhaps to this rock and roll music that's so popular these days?
That's right. When we went into the dressing room, music was blaring over the speaker on the wall.
They piped sound from the stage into the backstage through speakers. That way people in the back can hear what they're supposed to be on stage.
Did it have to be so loud? You don't listen to the Gaviners with your ears. You feel it with your entire body and soul. I always have the backstage monitors at full volume.
When we walked in the room, the band was playing Guilty Love, I believe, making it easy to determine the time of the crime.
If you could hear that music playing,
then everyone on stage with that song has an alibi, including myself.
Anyway, I closed off the scene and started my investigation. I examined the scene and determined that only the defendant could have done it.
How could you know something like that?
As I said, it was clear from the circumstances. Listen, we know there was only one exit from the room, that door. The small window only opened a tiny crack, and I was standing in front of that door. So how could the killer have fled the scene? There's only one possibility, the air vent.
But that air vent was too small. Who could possibly...
Exactly. There's certainly no way you could get through. Nor me. The only one who could fit through was a child.
A child?
Remember, access to those rooms was limited. Only those involved with the concert were allowed.
And of all the people involved with the concert, only one is small enough to be considered a child.
the defendant?
The pixie of the arpeggio flitted up toward the sky and disappeared from the scene of the crime. But that's just conjecture! Oh, there was no other way out of that room. You were there. You should know, Half Forehead.
And there is another vital piece of evidence.
Evidence?
What? Marks were found on the air vent grill. Traces that had recently been opened.
Wait,
what? And something else was found quite clearly. The defendant Machi Tobaye's fingerprints.
What? What?
Order, order, order!
That air vent was the only way out of the room. The defendant's fingerprints were found on the grill. Well, Half Forehead, what fairy tale does this suggest to you? Only one could pass through that vent, that doorway to heaven. And that one is our Pixie.
Why are you looking at me, Apollo? Hey, I was out whooping it up in the audience.
So this was his decisive evidence.
Quite decisive indeed. I believe that's enough of that. The prosecution has a rather convincing case. The only way in and out of the crime scene was watched, making the defendant the only one who could possibly leave the scene. Simple and decisive. Ugh. I believe we've heard enough to determine our verdict, even if I wasn't in a hurry to make a hospital visit.
I'm sure the Chief Justice will appreciate the gesture. Unfortunately, we have no direct witnesses. Fortunately, the criminal left decisive evidence for us. That will have to be enough.
Ugh.
It can't be over already.
Very well, I believe this trial is finished. If the defense has no contradicting evidence,
The prosecution has presented our proof clear and plain. If you have contradicting evidence, it better be clear and plain.
Apollo, they've got us on the ropes already. We better come up with something quick.
I know. Think, what could get us out of this? We need evidence or a witness that can prove Machi's innocent beyond a doubt. Without that,
Mr. Justice, do you have contradicting proof that can overturn a prosecution's case? If you do, you better tell us about it now.
this is it. And so soon. If I mess this one up, it's all over. The court wants contradicting proof? Okay. Prosecutor Gavin, you claim that there were no witnesses to this crime. Are you absolutely sure? Absolutely. I swear it on my career as a prosecutor. And on my million-seller hit song, Atroquinine, My Love.
There he goes again.
That's too bad, because there was a witness.
Oh, really now? But how did you come to possess knowledge the prosecution clearly does not?
Because I'm the only one in the world who knows this. What's going on? I just talked to him and now... He's alive! Miss Lutus, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold? Don't worry, you're going to be fine. Help's on the way. Can't see. Hang in there, Miss Lutus. Tell me, who was the witness? The witness is Siren.
What? The victim said this before he died?
Perhaps he did, and perhaps he did not.
What do you mean by that?
All we know is what Half Forehead says he said. It's no testimony, especially since it comes from the defense attorney himself. But it's the truth. He said it. I even told you about it. But apparently you ignored me completely. It's my policy to fully investigate everything I deem relevant. Clearly this rookie lawyer thinks he can tell me how to do my job.
That's enough! Mr. Justice, we need clear contradictory proof from you. This witness of yours unknown to the prosecution. I hope you're right. Failure carries a stiff penalty.
Perhaps a stiffer penalty than usual is called for.
There's no backing out now.
Let's hear the name of your witness, Mr. Justice. Lamiroir. Lamiroir?
Recall Miss Lutus's last words. The witness is Siren.
The siren. Aha! He meant the siren.
That's right. The siren of the ballad, Lamiroir. Lamiroir was only on stage for the second set. And she had access to the backstage area. She could have been a witness.
I see.
Well, Prosecutor Gavin, my claim still stands. There was no witness to this crime.
Very well. Let's hear it from the horse's mouth then, shall we? We will now take a break from Detective Ema Sky's cross-examination. Please show Lamiroir to the witness stand.
Lamiroir would say nothing the night of the murder.
Not today, though. Today, we'll drag that story out of her, no matter what it is.
It is my distinct honor to welcome the siren of the ballad to our courtroom.
You are too kind.
Ah, you can speak English?
Yes, I can. Though I am not very good. There is much I do not know.
You speak so well. Have you spent time here before?
Actually, I do not know how I came by my knowledge of your language, nor where I studied it.
What does she mean she doesn't know? I too thought to call her as a witness, but I did not. I had a reason, of course. What's that?
Lamiroir suffers from amnesia.
Amnesia?
Lamiroir is not my true name, yet I remember nothing of the time before I was given it. Nothing of the time before I started singing on stage. Whoa, she's even more mysterious than I thought.
As lauded singer Lamiroir, she lives a good life. There are little difficulties for her thanks to her success. Yet, I did not wish to subject her to unnecessary stress.
I see. I care surprisingly little about people's past. You have nothing to fear in this court, Lamiroir.
Thank you. Yet there is something I do not understand. I am being called as a witness. What might I say? No one will tell me anything of what happened.
Lamiroir, let me be frank. I did not want to ask you up here to testify. Yet that young gentleman with the wide forehead over there was adamant that you stand.
Oh my. Congratulations, Apollo. You're the bad guy.
Ugh. Well, now that you're here, please give us your testimony. If nothing else, the sound of your voice is welcome. Please tell us what you saw the night of the crime.
As for what I saw nothing. That night I was invited to sing on stage, and this I did. I did not return backstage after the second set. Then I was led by the police to Mr. Gavin's dressing room and told to wait there. That was where I learned that something had happened, but I wasn't told the details.
I must say, you sound wonderful just testifying.
I hope he was too distracted to hear what she was actually saying. There you have it. She saw nothing that night. Now we can only pray that the defense has a sense to admit defeat, and refrain from detaining her here longer than need be.
Wow, you just got badder, Apollo. Way to go.
Very well, Mr. Justice. Keep it short and sweet.
Lamiroir wouldn't talk to me the night of the crime. She must know something, and I've got to find out what.
Yeah, I'm apologize. I'm a bit distracted right now.
As for what I saw nothing. That night, I was invited to sing on stage, and this I did. I did not return backstage after the second set.
Are you really sure about this?
Objection!
I'm sorry, Lamiroir, but I'm having trouble believing you. You remember this brooch, do you not? Why, that's Lamiroir's. She was wearing it for a song. Care to add that to the testimony, Prosecutor Gavin? What? This brooch was found after the murder took place, at the very scene of the crime. What? Lamiroir, how did your brooch get backstage if you did not go there yourself? And as Prosecutor Gavin has just told us, you had been wearing it during your performance that night.
What is the meaning of this? Lamiroir, please explain.
Lamiroir. She says English is quite difficult.
That trick's not gonna work here.
Your forehead may be large, but you are a lawyer, truly. But you have missed one important fact.
What now?
In fact, at the time of the incident, I went backstage, but only for a moment.
What?
Think back to the moment of the crime. You know whereof I speak? Is she really saying all that? What's she talking about, Apollo? Right when the incident occurred.
Ah! Is she talking about that? Watch this room for me. I have to call for backup.
Right, understood. You want me to make sure no one comes in, right? Miss Latouche, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold? Don't worry, you're gonna be fine. Help's on the way. The witnesses. Siren. Siren? How can a siren witness anything? Yipes! Ema! What was that? Who's there? What's wrong? Ema, did you see anyone just now?
Huh? No.
I could have sworn I heard a door close.
I looked into the room. Just a glance, mind you.
So this was when your brooch dropped? That explains that.
It does. There was no other time I could have dropped it.
But that's ridiculous. You only looked in for an instant, but you dropped your brooch? Have forehead. She has raised the possibility. The only thing that can counter that is evidence.
So she looked in at the crime scene.
Actually, when I intended go into the dressing room. I knew nothing of what had happened, of course. But the moment I opened the door, I heard a horrible voice.
Hair forehead, shouting, "Who's there?" No doubt. A horrible voice indeed.
I closed the door immediately.
Well, that explains the brooch. Let's return to your testimony.
That's too convenient. She's hiding something. Lamiroir, you did look into the room though, right?
Yes,
Testify as to what you saw.
very well, though it was only the briefest of glimpses. When my performance was finished, I went backstage for just a moment. I saw nothing. The late Miss Latouche's body was behind the wall. I saw nothing. The late...
Gotcha! The late Miss Latouche's body, you say?
Yes.
You know something more about Miss Latouche's death than you're saying.
What?
I could see you trying not to remember, but the effort made you swallow. You can't fool my eyes.
It is true. It was so terrible after all. Why did Miss Latouche have to be shot?
One moment, Lamiroir.
Yes?
What was that you just said? Why did Miss Latouche have to be shot?
Yes.
She was hiding something. I knew it. Lamiroir, I'm afraid you haven't realized it, but your words just now contradict your testimony.
How could that be?
Take this! Lamiroir contradicted her own testimony, and I have the evidence to prove it. An investigation request!
Tell me, Lamiroir.
How did you know he had been shot?
Huh? Well,
Immediately following the incident, a gag order was placed on the scene. This is the document proving that. In your testimony, you told the court, "No one told me anything about the incident."
Huh?
Furthermore, you testified that you had seen nothing. Yet you knew that Miss Latouche had been shot. How could you have known?
Yee-haw!
Lamiroir, you aren't hiding something from this court, I hope.
That sweet song of hers was sounding a little too sweet.
Now I remember. Please, allow me to add to my testimony.
Of course. All we want to know is the truth.
She looks kind of pale, huh?
She saw something. I know it. Even the victim said so.
I saw bullet holes in the wall and knew Mr. Latouche had been shot.
Okay, thing is, how do you know this?
Objection!
Lamiroir, they call you the siren of the ballad, but lies are hurt becoming of such a creature.
A put-down worthy of our prosecutor, Mr. Justice.
Such put-downs are hardly becoming of you, Apollo.
Stop polishing your forehead and stop polishing your career, yeah? Come on! Can't that be cool for once? Anyway, observe the diagram. Lamiroir, you looked in from the door for just a moment, correct?
Yes, that is so.
There were bullet holes in the room, yes? But they were in the wall the door is on.
Huh?
You see? Assuming you merely glanced into the room, you couldn't have seen those bullet holes.
York!
Lamiroir,
Yes?
I'm afraid the defense has raised a good point. It appears you've been holding back something.
And I must tell you? I must tell you what it is that I saw?
Yes, the happenings in this trial are being recorded, and I'm certain it will be on the news in Virginia. You understand your reputation is at stake. It falls to you to avoid tarnishing it.
Personally speaking, I still believe that cross-examining her will yield us absolutely nothing. But she knew how Miss Latouche died, and he named her as a witness. You must have seen something, Lamiroir.
Very well.
Lamiroir, please continue your testimony.
Very well, I shall.
Witness testimony. I saw what I saw too.
I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There was something like a little window there. That's how I saw it. There were two shots. I couldn't do anything to stop it. But it wasn't Machi. It was a grown person. I know it was.
So you did witness the crime, and the killer was a grown person, you say?
This is my first time hearing this, I assure you. Nice play, Herr Forehead.
Very well, Mr. Justice. You may begin your cross-examination.
Great going, Apollo. You were right about Lamiroir. What's wrong? You don't look too happy.
This whole thing smells fishy. That's what's wrong. Of course it's fishy. And we're about to prove why.
I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There was something like a little window there. That's how I saw it. There were 2 shots. I couldn't do anything to stop it. But it wasn't Machi. It was a grown person. I know it was.
A grown person? That's a little vague.
I am sorry. My skill with your language is lacking, I know.
Certainly you could at least see whether the shooter was male or female.
It was a man, a young man.
And you're sure of that?
Yes, his voice was quite clear.
Voice?
Looking at this diagram, it seems the dressing room was quite cluttered. It does seem likely that you wouldn't have had a clear view of the shooter.
As a singer, I rely more on my ears than my eyes. When I hear a voice, I do not forget it. That voice was the voice of a man.
So you've heard a voice, but wait. Couldn't that have been the victim, Mr. Latouche?
Absolutely not. Did I not just say that I do not forget a voice? If it was Mr. Latouche who spoke, I would have known.
Indeed. So you were at the window, and you heard the shooter's voice, the voice of a young man.
Apollo, this is a good testimony. That proves it wasn't Machi.
Indeed. If this turns out to be true, it would cast his case in a considerably different light. What is the defense's opinion of this testimony?
It's contradictory.
Sorry. Though it pains me to say this, there's something about Lamiroir's testimony that rings false.
Bravo, Herr Forehead. You're colder than I thought. I'm sure you remember what the problem is as well as I do, Gavin. As has been established, no grown man could pass through that air vent. He couldn't have fled the scene of the crime.
But that means Lamiroir has to be lying.
I know, and I know it's bad for our case, but I can't shut my eyes to this. Believe me, the idea was tempting. It is as Herr Forehead says. Yet this is not the only contradiction within her testimony. What next? What's he talking about? Lamiroir, I understand why you would want to protect Machi. Yet remember, you are the siren of the ballot. And our lies do not become such a creature.
What does the prosecution mean?
Apollo, what's he talking about?
How come no one bats an eye when he says stuff like that? I recall the state of the crime scene quite well. The state of the room. Yes, and when the murder took place, that window was closed. I find it hard to believe you could hear a voice through it.
What? But I'm sure.
Lamiroir, I have nothing but the highest regard for your musical sense. But my opinion of you as a witness is somewhat less.
Objection!
But she's the only eyewitness we have!
Objection!
So you say, and the victim named her the siren as the witness?
That's right! That's what Miss Latouche!
We heard your claim. We even entertained the possibility, and it brought us to this. Herr Judge.
Yes?
The prosecution requests that the witness be excused. Please.
I'm afraid I must honor the prosecution's request. There is indeed a question of the witness's credibility.
But if Lamiroir can't testify, then we don't have a chance of proving Machi's innocence.
This cross-examination is over. Prosecutor Gavin, you may continue making your case.
Danke. Now, where were we? Ah, yes, I would like to hear from Fräulein Detective.
Objection!
Wait, let me hear Lamiroir's testimony one last time.
But the cross-examination is already over, until such a time as a need arises. This witness may leave the stand.
I'm sorry I could not be of more assistance.
What a bummer. At last, back to the real trial. Ready, Herr Forehead? I hope I didn't just miss my only chance. Fräulein Detective, how far had we gotten until we were so rudely interrupted?
Don't ask me.
I just like saying that same thing twice. And I never repeat a song for an encore.
If you would, Miss Sky.
I believe I was saying that the only way Miss Latouche's killer could have escaped was through that air vent on the ceiling.
Ah, yes, there was only one door in the room, and a witness, you, was standing in front of it.
That air vent isn't very big, see? Kind of limits the people who could possibly get through.
I certainly would have had a difficult time.
You sure would. Not that you would have been there in the first place, though. Remember, the whole backstage area was off limits to people not involved with the concert. The only one who meets the conditions for our killer is the defendant.
A virtuoso performance. I couldn't have put it better myself.
She does state a clear case. Though reading the report, something caught my eye.
Oh? What's that?
The circumstances of the defendant's arrest.
The circumstances? Again?
Hey, that's right! Apollo! Remember when we found Machi? That was bizarre.
She's right. Why did Mr. Latus's body disappear from the room and end up on top of that stage tower? Holding a guitar, no less. A perceptive observation, head judge.
Thanks. It was kind of an accident, really. But you work in this job long enough, you get a nose for things.
The judge sure seems pleased with himself.
Very good, Frillian Detective. Perhaps you can tie it all together for us. Why was the body moved? And how does that lead us to the killer?
Guess we're gonna find more information, huh?
Okay, then.
I believe Machi stole the body because of some lyrics. He moved the body to match Lamiroir's song. No one in this country had a motive to kill the victim, and Machi practically left his signature at the scene. All of this evidence clearly points to the defendant.
Lamiroir's song? Yes, the Guitar Serenade. You noticed its code too, did you not?
Its code?
All the events that day follow the lyrics to our song. First, the keys my heart held onto so tightly were stolen. Then Prosecutor Gavin's guitar burst into flames on stage. Miss Latus's life was taken by a bullet. The rest hardly needs explanation. Guitar, guitar, up together to the sky.
That's mad. It's like a story out of some fairy tale.
I admit I'd forgotten about the song, but there it is now waiting for me. The grand finale, as it were.
Hey, you know I was the one who first noticed that.
I've heard of jumping rope to songs and counting the songs. But killing? It's a wild world out there, head judge.
Very well. We've heard one song and dance. Let's get on to the next. The cross-examination.
I'm not so sure I'm going to be doing much singing. Well, there will be.
I believe Machi stole the body because of some lyrics. He moved the body to match Lamiroir's song. No one in this country had a motive to kill the victim, and Machi practically left his signature at the scene.
What do you mean by a signature?
The bullet holes in the wall, of course.
The bullet holes?
The revolver was fired twice. One shot missed and left a hole in the wall.
And that means what exactly?
That dressing room isn't exactly spacious. Picture the shooter facing off with the victim in there. They can't have been more than 5 feet apart. It would be difficult, almost impossible to miss at that range.
Difficult to miss, you say?
Very. Assuming the shooter could properly aim.
No, you can't be serious.
Machi, he can't see. That's why he missed? It's the only explanation that makes sense. He used sound and other senses to fire the gun.
Poorly. That reminds me, the monitor in that room was blaring at the time, yeah? All the ideal conditions for tracking by sound.
A blind shooter. No wonder he missed.
I knew those bullet holes would come back to haunt me. Think, Justice, think. What do I do now?
Raise an objection. Sure, there were bullet holes left in the wall. But that doesn't prove the shooter couldn't see.
Oh?
How so? Well, there could have been a struggle with the victim.
That's certainly possible.
And it might have been the revolver's fault.
The revolver?
The revolver was a very large caliber, correct?
If the shooter wasn't used to firing such a large weapon, why, he could dislocate their shoulder.
Exactly. The defendant, Machi Tobaye, is, as you can see, tiny. It's not so hard to picture him firing the gun and miss it entirely. The kickback alone would throw off his aim.
A convincing argument, to be sure.
Take that, smug prosecution.
Apollo?
Huh? What?
That bit about Machi being tiny. And the gun throwing off his aim. Aren't you kind of, admitting that he did it?
Oh, it does not matter why he missed. What matters is that the shooter was, without a doubt, the defendant. Even the defense seems to agree on that point. Cripes! I really put my foot into it this time. But let's get the facts of the matter on the record. If you would, Frillian Detective.
Very well, the witness will add this to her testimony.
Right. From the state of the crime scene, I conclude the shooter was blind.
If he was blind, then answer this.
The prosecution holds that the shooter couldn't see. A scientific conclusion based on a thorough examination of the crime scene, yes. Apparently not thorough enough. I have a certain piece of evidence that completely overturns your claim. What? This is that evidence!
The photograph of the crime scene.
I don't care much for the smirk on Prosecutor Gavin's face, but this is no time to think twice. Time to press on. Yes, Your Honor, the crime scene. There is something in here that decisively contradicts the prosecution's point.
Then perhaps you'd best show us this something. Get your finger out of that breeze and put it to good use, yeah? Very well, show us what you're talking about, Mr. Justice. The contradiction at the scene of the crime is... right here.
The contradiction is right here. The smeared bloodstains?
I thought it was just my blurry vision. But it really was blurry. The way the victim's hand is raised above his head. Much like a gesture I have seen many times in this court.
It's almost as if he wrote something. Aha! I get it! At least I think I get it.
Get what, Frelin?
When Mr. Latouche was shot, he tried to write something. And what would he write but the shooter's name? And what would he write it in but his own blood? Pretty good, huh?
Thanks for making my point for me, Trucy.
Yes, in fact, that's what I think happened here.
That does seem to be a distinct possibility.
The victim wrote the killer's name. It's certainly a logical conclusion. Drat, I just wish it wasn't all rubbed out like that.
Of course it's rubbed out. Why, if I were a killer, I certainly wouldn't want to leave my own name behind.
Neither would I. No one has anything else to say?
About what?
So the prosecution accepts this. You agree this was the victim making an attempt to record the name of the killer, and that the killer tried to rub the name out. What's your point?
What's my point? Let me ask you this. How did the killer know the victim was writing their name?
Well, Mr. Latouche was writing something in blood. Once the killer saw what it was... Wait.
Once he saw what it was?
But what did you just testify about the shooter? I said they were blind.
Yet the crime scene itself contradicts that. The killer had to have been able to see. Why would they rub out the name in blood otherwise?
May I remind the court that the defendant, Machi Tobaye, is blind. He couldn't have been the shooter. Impossible!
Order! 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 Prosecutor Gavin, please explain to me what all this means. I mean, looking at this photo, it seems quite clear that the shooter could see. Yet up until now...
It seems I owe the court an apology. The Gaviners are a band with law enforcement ties yet a murder occurred during our concert. Apparently this caused some confusion over its jurisdiction. As a result, some reports were not filed in an entirely timely manner. I'm not sure I like the vibe I'm getting here.
Hey, Apollo, look at him. Why is Prosecutor Gavin all relaxed and smiling like that? Like he knows something we don't, and he's about to tell us.
I've got an idea. Let's rock with these documents. But before that, I have a question for the Frelin detective, if I may.
What?
Tell me, why do you think that Machi Tobaye is blind?
Huh?
What did he say?
What are you saying? Of course he's blind.
Of course.
He's the blind pianist, right? So he's... Doesn't Lamiroir lead him around by the hand all the time?
No way. I have a report here on the defendant, Machi Tobaye. According to this, Machi Tobaye can see perfectly well.
What?
His blindness was merely a publicity ploy by those clever Borginians. He can see quite well.
But you said...
What did I say exactly? Therefore, not once in the course of this trial have I claimed the defendant was blind. The only one who did was Frelin detective.
But that's...
A significant fact, yes. Consider Machi Tobaye sees. And he was the only one who could have fled through the air vent. I see no problems with this.
But what about the bullet holes in the wall?
Yes, the bullet holes. I believe Herr Forehead neatly explained those for us. He didn't miss because he couldn't see. It was the kickback from the .45 caliber revolver. A simple accident, in other words. Ah! How's that? I'm afraid your objection has just flown off for brighter skies. This is where the real fun begins, Herr Forehead.
Yeah!
I knew you didn't have what it took.
You jerk. Just what was I in here for? Comic relief? Yeah, apologize.
Oh, sorry.
That's no way to apologize.
He's angry at the Trucy now. Look out.
If we could please end the bickering. Now.
Whatever. I'm not leaving. I can't leave like this. I'll come up with some clue to solve in this case if it kills me.
But your testimony has already given us enough to convict the defendant.
Don't say that.
Aha!
Aha, what?
This bloodstain. The criminal tried to wipe it off, right?
That seems to be what happened, yes.
We might be able to find out what was really written here.
Really? You can do that?
That's right. With this. It's called luminol. Maybe you know of it. It's a chemical that reacts to blood.
Ah, yes. Have we done those tests yet?
Ha! As if I'm gonna tell you.
The bloodstains covered a section of the carpet. In order to perform blood tests, that section was removed and submitted. Perhaps we should request it here in court now.
Right. Go for it, Apollo.
Huh? I have to do the test?
You just have to spray the luminol on it. Simple.
A chemical that reacts to blood. I've heard of this somewhere.
Yes, I believe an analysis is called for. Have at it.
Right. Ready? It's easy as pie. Just press the A to spray an area. Here, give it a try.
The eyes of the entire court are focused on.
Apollo, your hand's shaking.
Ugh. Let's do this.
Wow, it really works.
This must be the power of science. It says IPXX314206. Is that the killer's name?
Maybe it is, if the killer was a robot.
Aha, I have it. So what is it? I thought those letters IPXX looked familiar. This is an Interpol ID number.
Interpol? You mean the International Police Agency?
Yes, most undercover agents working to solve international crimes. But why would he write that number? Why would Miss Latouche even know a number like that? Good show for the detective. Rock on.
Eh?
Your Honor, we can verify this number immediately. Darian, are you there? Come up to the witness stand. Darian, you heard what we need. Go check into this Interpol ID number.
Sure thing.
Give me 30 minutes. Yo, give me 20 seconds. 7.
I'm not sure what to think of all this. The prosecution's case is airtight, or so it seems. Yet if this number is really that of an Interpol agent...
Oh, wait, I know. What if Machi Tobaye is really an undercover Interpol agent?
That would be a possibility.
A possibility, yes.
And one that would mark him as the killer for certain. Why did Latouche know an Interpol ID number? That's what I want to know. Well, we have some time while we await Darian's report. Let's work on unraveling another mystery, shall we? A curious mystery concerning Machi Tobaye. What are you talking about? Fräulein Detective, please accept my apologies. I received word that the defendant could in fact see just before the trial began. It seemed too much of a bother to tell you.
You had me until that last bit.
Does this not raise a rather straightforward question?
Well, sure. Why did Machi pretend he couldn't see?
Exactly. It makes little sense. What do you think, Herr Forehead?
Huh? Me?
Machi Tobaye pretended he was blind. Do you know why?
How could he know? Wait, Prosecutor Gavin knows why, doesn't he?
He's known from the start of the trial. He's been leading us on this whole time. Something wrong? You think perhaps this is all some kind of game? No, but the moment I heard that report, I knew why.
I suppose people who have sold over 1 million records really are something else.
What does that have to do with anything? There was a reason why Machi Tobaye pretended to be blind, but it wasn't for his own sake. Getting the picture now? It wasn't for himself?
Well, Mr. Justice, can you present evidence that showed us why the defendant had a feigned blindness?
Yes. Machi had no reason to pretend he couldn't see, which means, no, it couldn't be. Good show, Herr Forehead. It seems you've thought of something. Why can't I figure these things out on my own? I hate having to take my cues from this guy. Very well. Look at this. This is why he was pretending he couldn't see.
That is Lamiroir.
Lamiroir and Machi Tobaye. Recall their relationship. In particular, their unique arrangement over the years before visiting our country. Lamiroir and her pianist. They would always walk together, she leading him by the hand. Even when they got on stage, she would lead him to the piano. She would walk all the way over there with him. That's right, because he was blind. She led him at all times, never letting him go.
All times.
Yet we have just learned something that makes their arrangement peculiar indeed. Machi could see. Why did they have to keep up this act the whole time?
Well, wasn't it part of their performance?
I think there's a simpler explanation. Machi did not need to be led by the hand at all. That can only mean one thing. Really? Really, it was all the other way around. The one who needed to be led by the hand was Lamiroir.
What's this?
So you mean to say that Lamiroir is... Yes, Your Honor. Lamiroir is blind. What?
Order! This is crazy! Prosecutor Gavin!
Is it now? Please shed some sanity on this madness. The defense has made an outrageous claim. The only thing outrageous I see about the defense is his vast forehead. Yet I see it is not vast in vain, this time. He's quite correct.
But that makes no sense!
Yeah! Wasn't she supposed to be the landscape painter in sound or something? Well, since we have her here, why not ask Lamiroir herself? I believe she's still in the witness waiting room. Apollo, what does this mean for our case? Don't ask me. I had no idea she couldn't see. I hadn't even imagined it until now.
Bailiff, bring in Lamiroir.
Lamiroir, it pains me deeply to call you before us again in this way, and yet I must. Please do not be concerned on my behalf. Those eyes, she really can't see. Really? It is true. How funny it is that a tiny lie born in the Virginian countryside would one day grow to entangle the entire world.
So you are...
Yes, as I mentioned before, I have no memory of the time before I became Lamiroir. Know too that my memories began in darkness. The word light has no meaning for Lamiroir.
I see.
You may recall me saying something toward the beginning of this trial, Half Forehead. What's that? I believe I said it was unfortunate this crime had no direct witnesses. Now Lamiroir, I must ask you to stand once more. Will you testify to the court about your eyes? Of course. It was never my intent to deceive any of you. May I begin, Your Honor?
Yes, of course. Though I admit I'm a little lost here.
I think we're all a bit lost here, Your Honor. Witness testimony.
Lamiroir's eyes.
I have no memory of the light. I debuted in a world of darkness and sound. My producer came up with my PR line before he knew this. So silly as it may sound, I had to pretend I could see. Everyone on my staff knew, of course, but no others.
But this is a murder trial.
I apologize. It was part of my contract, you see. I was to keep my blindness a secret no matter what. Music is everything for me. I never imagined something like this would.
She told us the truth in the beginning. When she said she saw nothing. Very well, does the defense have anything to add?
I'd like to cross-examine. But what is there left to ask? There was one thing in her testimony that bothered me.
Perhaps it is best we let you get it out of your system. Someday you'll come to understand the importance of thinking for yourself. Very well, the defense may proceed. However, be aware this court will not tolerate any questions deemed too stressful to the witness.
Okay. There was only one part that bothered me. Just let me ask about that and I'll be happy.
All we need to do is read the last statement.
I have no memory of the light. I debuted in a world of darkness and sound. My producer came up with my PR line before he knew this. So silly as it may sound, I had to pretend I could see. Everyone on my staff knew, of course, but no others. When you say your staff, do you include Miss Letouce? Of course. He was my manager.
So he knew. And that's what's been bugging me. Something the matter, Mr. Justice?
I believe I know what is bothering our young defense attorney. You are thinking of when you discovered the body, yes?
Is he right, Apollo?
Yes, I was.
He's alive!
Miss Latus, can you hear me? Cold. So cold. Witness. You're cold? Don't worry, you're gonna be fine. Help's on the way. Can't see. Hang in there, Mr. Latus. Tell me, who was the witness? The witness is Siren. Miss Latus told me to ask the witness, and he named you. Why would he do that? He knew you were blind.
I don't know.
What did I just say? You need to learn to think for yourself. Meaning what? There is no mystery here, if you recall everything he said. Think of his last words once more. The witness? Siren? We've heard them many times along with a little play acting by our defense. I remember them well myself, but that statement is not to what I refer. I mean what he said before that. Before? What came before that? Ah! That's right. He tried to tell you. When he said can't see, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about the witness. I see! Too bad the defense did not. Well, have forehead. Try relaxing and looking at the facts first next time. Ah! Order! Order! Recall Lamiroir's earlier testimony.
I was on my way from the stage to the backstage exit. There were 2 shots. I couldn't do anything to stop them.
But she couldn't have heard those gunshots. I thought we proved that. That is not the most important point here. The moment he was shot, Miss Latus witnessed her through that window. Why else would he have named her as the witness?
Ah, but I really did hear them. 2 gunshots, and the man's voice.
Unfortunately, such a thing was impossible. The window was closed. We have already run a simulation, of course.
But it was so clear. If I heard that voice again, I would know it in an instant.
Your Honor. What is it, bailiff? Can't you see we're in session here? We have the results back from the investigation. The investigation? Ah, the Interpol number that Miss Latus left us. Well, let's hear it. We will continue this cross-examination afterward. Detective Frichen, your report, please. I asked Interpol about that number. I'm sure you'll find their answer intriguing. Quick work as always, Darian. Well, tell us about the number. Is the defendant a secret agent? IPXX 314206. The agent registered under this number was Romain Latus. What? Our undercover Interpol agent was Mr. Latus himself. He was apparently in the middle of an operation. So when he wrote those letters, he was trying to tell us his own identity. And a cautious killer tried to wipe them away.
Mr. Latus was an undercover Interpol agent. So him being Lamiroir's manager
was just a cover, most likely. There's one other important detail I found. Well, out with it. It concerns that .45 caliber revolver, the murder weapon. Apparently it belonged to Romain Latus. He had an Interpol permit to carry firearms. And the registration number on the revolver matched. So the victim was killed with his own weapon, which makes sense. It's hard to imagine someone who wasn't an Interpol agent with such a large revolver. So the victim was an Interpol agent on an undercover op. I wonder how that ties into everything.
It's gotta tie in somehow, you think?
Yeah, somehow. Thanks for looking into that for us, Detective Frichen. It's a great help. Oh, no problem at all, Your Honor. I'll be heading out.
Wait!
Lamiroir, is something the matter?
That voice just now.
Darian?
Mr. Darian, is it? It was him. I am sure of it.
It was him? You aren't saying...
That voice I heard talking to Miss Latus, when I heard the gunshots fired, it was him. It was Mr. Darian.
Is this some kind of a joke? What? No way. The courtroom fell into such a chaotic state the trial had to be suspended temporarily. I'd never seen that happen before. Of course, it's not every day that you get an accusation like that one. Lamiroir fingering Darian Crescent. Not only is he a guitarist, he's a detective. Could it really have been his voice Lamiroir heard? Things were changing fast, and frankly, I wasn't sure I could keep up with it.
Hey, no whipping out now, Apollo.
I know that, Trucy. I know that all too well. Because after all, our work is not finished. That is it. If you enjoy this, like, comment, share, subscribe, and click the bell. I will see you then. This is MegamanNG signing off. Peace out. Product provided by CAPCOM.